Hi there, it's Hal Feldman, MiamiHal, and this is a very special episode of the MiamiHal Real Estate Show. Usually we're on Thursdays at 2, but today it's 3 o'clock on a Friday, and it's because I have a very special guest, and I'd like to introduce her right now. This is the County Mayor, Daniella Levine Cava. Please bring up her box. Daniella, I see you in your office working hard, so that's always great to see. You've been a guest in the past, but today we've got some really great topics to talk about. And I do want to remind our audience that they are welcome at any time to type into their social media box. And if there's a good question, we'll make sure to get that in. But we've got a lot to get to. Mayor, you ready?
I am ready, Hal. Thank you so much for having me on.
No, I appreciate you and your time as well. We just got out after Tuesday with a brand new budget hearing. And I want to hear in your words how you feel that went, because that is critical right now for a lot of things that are going on in our county.
Hal, I'm very, very proud that we were able to pass a historic budget. We provided the first tax cut in 10 years, the lowest millage rate since 1982. It's an overall $25 million that the taxpayers saved. And it definitely shows that we recognize that while property values have gone up, people are still not all getting by. And so the other really critical part of this budget is that we made transformational investment in the housing situation. Anywhere you go, people are talking about it. Housing is just the cost has skyrocketed. Our young people can't stay here. Our workers can't stay here. Our families, our seniors, everybody is really having a hard time. We've become the number one least affordable housing market in the country compared to our salaries, which have risen as well, but not keeping pace with inflation and especially housing. So $85 million new dollars for a range of programs that will help renters, homeowners, landlords to fix up property and keep it affordable, landlords to bring down the price of housing, and also money to finish some of these projects, development projects that have not been completed because of the increased cost of materials and labor. So we're very excited about it. It will help thousands and thousands of people on top of the 32,000 new affordable and workforce units underway. And we also have in the budget money to top off our SMART plan. That's 6 new corridors, the county's share of budget. So now we can get the applications in for the state and federal government to fund those corridors with our local match. And our environment, definitely new investments in taking care of our environment that are so critical to us. Our environment is our economy, and other investments. So I'm very, very happy and proud of this budget.
That is so much to unpack. And I'm sure you spent a lot of time along with a bunch of other legislatures over the past couple of months. I do want to kind of back up a little bit, because on July 15th, you were quoted as saying, "As we look to the budget year ahead, we owe it to residents struggling with the rising costs of living to provide immediate relief. I'm proud that my administration has put forward a balanced, fiscally responsible, compassionate budget proposal for the fiscal year 22 and 23 that will cut property taxes for property owners." So that was your statement a couple of months ago. And what was the process or the struggle that got you through to Tuesday and the success that you had?
So everybody, of course, likes to pay less tax. And especially in these trying times, we are recovering from the pandemic, but we're not there yet. So we wanted to do something. There were some who wanted to have a steeper tax cut, but that would not have been responsible. We are right now propped up on federal dollars from the American Rescue Plan, the CARES Act, the bipartisan infrastructure bill. These dollars have been our lifeline, and they allowed us to get through without cutting services during the time when our revenues were down. Now that revenues are on the rebound, we'll be able to hopefully, with the 1% cut, not have to cut in future. If we had cut the taxes further, the tax rate further, we would be looking at even a possible deficit in the unincorporated areas starting in a couple of years. And that would, for example, affect our police services, our parks, our transit, etc. So we had to look to the future. I find it very instructive that other cities did the same. right? Everybody's got their own millage rate. And by and large, cities either gave that tax cut 1%. The city of Miami gave 1.1%. Other cities did not give any tax cut. And some cities even increased their taxes. So I think we definitely showed that we wanted to give something back, but we needed to think about the future as well.
Yeah, and so I know that you do as much as you can without hopefully hurting us in the future. How do you feel like this 1% tax cut and all the other things you did to work on the budget are really, how does the rubber meet the road? And do you expect certain things to be a little tough over the next year, or do you think that what you've done is a perfect plan?
Well, nothing's perfect,
Right.
but we did work super hard, as you say. The county departments start in January every year. They put together their final budget asks, if you will, to our budget office in March. And we started having public conversations about this budget in February. So this is unprecedented. That has never been done. And over the course of the year, and especially leading up to the budget the budget hearings in September, we had 27 workshops and community conversations. That's never, ever been done. And so what happened was that we brought the information that we had, we shared it with the public, they gave their feedback and input. And I think that's why you had so many happy people down at the budget hearings. Virtually everyone who came was satisfied with the budget. And that means that we did our homework. People understood what was needed. They saw the budget reflected the things that were important. They, wasn't a luxury budget by any means. It was a budget that maintained services and also made sure that we could take care of county accountability. There were definitely areas where we need, and I'm sorry, in addition to accountability, we also had a number of part-time staff that were made full-time. And the part-time was making a huge turnover situation. And, turnover costs money. You can't be constantly losing employees to other roles. There are other places trying to hire. We're losing our workforce. We can't maintain our parks. We can't take care of our jails. We can't drive the bus. So we had to really grapple with how to be competitive in this market.
You mentioned 27 workshops and how they were unprecedented, getting you into the budget process. And do you feel like there was more participation in those 27 workshops? And what value did you extract from those workshops?
Yes, every year it increases. And because of my Thrive 305 participatory initiative starting out as mayor almost 2 years ago, we have a lot more people that are informed and engaged. So, and I have an engagement team to help make sure that people are aware and participate. So we worked with the chambers, we worked with the arts groups, with the housing advocacy organizations, the environmental groups. We had special town halls just for them as well. We did geographically. And then we had something we called Conversations with Cava, which was more like a give and take session. Mm-hmm. And it was a dialogue where people came and wanted to talk about the issues of the day, how the county was addressing them. We got lots of ideas and suggestions, and we also were able to help a lot of people that showed up and needed county services.
To the layman, the budget and its size and complexity can be completely overwhelming, and many of those would just basically say something has to give. What is it? What do you say to the layman who says, hey, you cut some taxes and that's wonderful, but what are we losing? Are we losing anything?
So we're almost 3 million people in the county. We're almost 30,000 employees. And mind you, that includes the airport, the seaport, the water and sewer department, the solid waste department. These are all providing essential services. Now, our police and our fire, the best in the nation. We have, by the way, very good retention in these departments. And that's why we have good quality. People want to be in those departments because we have a reputation for quality, for community responsiveness. the community is very supportive of these services. So we can't cut corners. We have to be able to provide basic services. During the pandemic, for example, our garbage pickup increased dramatically because people were working from home.
Yeah.
So we had to kind of reorient and
Sure.
make sure that we could service people with their trash pickup needs. So our police department is doing community policing, prevention. We have been able to reduce our violent crime rate, our murders, our shootings. Through our special Operation Community Shield, we've taken almost 2,000 illegal weapons off the streets since January. We've reduced our murders over past years. So these are things that we have to pay for, and it's a good return on investment.
For sure. You had mentioned people that are in incorporated areas versus unincorporated areas and how their taxes may differ. I know that you can't speak directly to it, but can you talk about people that are in areas such as Palmetto Bay, Pinecrest, Coral Gables, those areas that are incorporated?
Yeah, so we have 34 cities, and it's a little more than half of the county's geography that's in cities now. And the rest is in unincorporated Miami-Dade County, and the county is responsible for all the services in unincorporated. So the cities get to charge their own tax rate. Those residents pay less in their county. They don't pay the unincorporated rate. There's a county-wide that applies to everybody. So different cities do end up paying different rates in their taxes, depending on how much money each city has in their property values, their commercial revenue, and so on. So it does vary. And of course, each of those cities has its own elected official body, their own police, some of them their own fire. Generally, they might have parks. Bigger ones have more parks. So it's really a variety of things. But even in the cities, county is providing very essential services. We are doing the solid waste and water for most of the cities, fire for most of the cities. 3 cities even purchase police services from the county. And then there's county-wide crime lab, serious felonies that may be handled by the county in some of the smaller municipalities. So there's a lot of interplay that varies from city to city. And I've done something different in my administration from previous administrations. I believe we must partner with the cities for the well-being. The water flows, the air flows, the cars flow, the traffic flows. Everything is not restricted to a city, and we must work together. So we've been very active in the League of Cities. We are a member. We've convened a number of sessions to come up with joint policy on housing, on crime, on COVID response, on water issues. And we're going to continue to do that. I think that's a really important part of county government, is to be a regional planning body for the cities as well.
I'd like to move on to one of my favorite segments. We've done this each time that you've appeared, and I'll repeat it for those that are new to the show. I kind of see you as a bus driver, and the rest of the bus is the county of Miami-Dade, and we've got a whole bunch of people in the back seat, but we don't see the dashboard. And you get to wake up every day and look at your dashboard, and you can decide what the priorities are. So maybe it's not the exact priorities of the county, but what do you see today as your top priorities, and where do you want to drive the bus, separate from budget and all those other things we've already spoken about?
Yeah. Well, let me say, first of all, Hal, metaphorically, I do ride the bus every day because we have been working so hard to recruit bus drivers. And we just graduated another class today. We've been giving out bonuses. I've been on the air urging people to come on board, become a bus driver. We're heading towards improving our transit system, and we need more drivers to do that. So just to say, it's not all, a metaphor for the county. It's actually about the buses too.
The rubber is meeting the road, so to speak.
The rubber is meeting the road. That's right. Affordability has become the number one issue because we're both the beneficiary and have some challenges thanks to how popular we've become. So we all knew we lived in paradise, right? You've known that. People, you've been selling homes and for people and helping people buy homes here because of how glorious it is. But during the pandemic, we were discovered by others, and so they've flocked here. They've driven up our prices, and particularly our housing prices. It's really it's a catastrophe for many. They cannot afford to live here. We're losing our workforce. We're losing our families. Seniors and others on fixed income really struggling to get by. Also, the high cost of insurance, if you can get it, and so on. So that has been number one. And I have spent a huge amount of time and energy and capital and human capital addressing this issue. And between the 123 million we spent to keep people from being evicted, that was 23,000 households that we prevented from being evicted. The 32,000 units in process to be constructed, the funds to maintain affordable, naturally occurring affordable housing by helping to pay for the repairs and keep the prices low, etc. We really have pulled out all the stops. So that has to be number one. And then I've become something of a public health official through the pandemic. We're the only county that has maintained and still maintains test sites and vaccination sites. I'll be getting my booster, my new one, next week, I believe. And we want everyone to know that this is now an annual ritual. Just like you get your flu shot, you should be getting your coronavirus vaccine. And monkeypox, whether it's Zika or dengue or malaria, these things exist. And we've done a great job tamping it down. So I feel very, very happy about protecting people's health and safety, right? People do worry about safety. We have done well, but some crimes are on the increase. Unfortunately, more like domestic crimes are on the increase. And we know that mental health, people are really struggling with post-traumatic stress from all that we've been through, and suicides high and mental illness high. So that is very, very critical. And, today we're in the cone of concern about a hurricane. So let's not forget that hurricanes are us, and we're just praying and hoping that this one passes us by, but we are getting ready.
That is again, so much to unpack and so much to think about. I do want to go back to affordability a little bit, because I kind of see what's gone on in the last couple of years as a double-edged sword. Yes, people's houses that already live here have gone up in price, but unless you're wanting to leave or wanting to sell, it doesn't affect you in a positive way. It actually affects you in a negative way, in that the people around you in the community, the way it was, doesn't stay the same. And so it seems to me, and maybe you can tell me differently, that that's not necessarily in the purview of the county governance. It's a massive force that maybe you can do a little bit to affect, but you certainly aren't the savior or the problem there, right? So is there anything at your level that you are thinking about to help with the affordability, with some very concrete examples that you might be able to give?
Well, I do think we need an increased supply. So supply and demand curves, we all know about that. And we've had a limited supply. And so we're building like mad. And the building has been compounded by the supply chain issues, the increased cost of things. But we're doing a lot to make sure that last dollar is available to get those units in the ground. We're 32,000 units, in the course of a couple of years. A year ago plus, we pledged 14,000 units. And then in June, we pledged another 18,000. That's 32. Then we also created the Building Blocks Fund to top off the financing for other development. Then we put the 85 million that includes securing new units by making sure that anybody who ran out of funds before they could finish can finish, and then preserving affordable. So those things are not being done in other communities necessarily. This is a very creative, comprehensive approach, and we have to get through this difficult time price is probably not going down, but maybe the demand will decrease with the increased supply and things will stabilize.
Got it. You had said earlier that we're number one in the country for a number of things. And unfortunately, we're also number one for insurance fraud, which is one of the reasons why affordability is so out of whack here.
Yes,
Um,
yes.
I was taken aback when I first heard how much of a crisis we were in. The insurance companies were saying, "Hey, it's a risk thing. We've got too much risk in South Florida." And then I really started to unpack that and understand they're not talking about risk from hurricane. They're talking about risk from fraudulent claims
Mm.
and the costs of staying in court with high priced attorneys to fight what is ultimately a crime, which is what's going on here. So I'm wondering if there's anything you have to say about that, because again, this may be something that is beyond direct control of your administration. But
Mm.
for example, Citizens Insurance has had to absorb double the number of policies they had last year because people can't find another insurance carrier to go for windstorm.
Yeah, so the insurance industry is regulated by the state, and there was a special session that was to deal with it, which wasn't able to do very much. I know I've heard it suggested that the state should not allow companies to issue auto insurance unless they also issue homeowners. But then I understand that that might be kind of calling someone's bluff, and we might not get the better end of that deal. Um, Obviously, it is a very complicated situation, and we did have a mortgage fraud challenge a while back. You might recall there was a mortgage fraud task force in the county. Um, and maybe it's time for an insurance fraud task force. And since you're bringing it up, I'll bring it up with the state attorney and we'll have that conversation to see what we can do. I know it's a statewide problem. I know, and I mean, I'm not familiar with people knocking on your door and saying we can change your roof for you and all that, but I hear that happens. Um,
Sometimes we actually get mailings like that as homeowners, and it says, "Hey, let us take a look at your roof. You probably have an insurance claim there," and that already starts off on the wrong foot.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Hmm. So definitely look to see. It has been really hard at a county level. One of the things we've done is try to reduce the risks. So, for example, flood insurance is calculated based on a rating that a community gets, determined by the kinds of uh, resilience measures that are put in place. And Cutler Bay was the first to be really aggressive about it and get a good score and bring down the cost of flood insurance in Cutler Bay. Since then, recently it's been in the news that Miami's score went down a little bit. And we're on the verge of having the county score go down as well. So that will be of benefit to people in the cost of their flood insurance. Um, so I think we're at a 5. We think we're ready to get to a 3. Um, uh, you know, 1 is great, apparently. So we're working on it.
Now we're looking for a golf score. The lower, the better. And kind of secondary to that, which is clearly out of our general control, is I did have the topic of water intrusion. And recently, I guess about 3 weeks ago, we heard this wonderful story about zombie ice. And I went, "What is that?" And essentially, it's new ice that's in Greenland that they, as scientists, have determined that it is going to melt a lot faster than expected. And when it does, we're going to have 10 inches of global, at least 10 inches of global sea level rise as a result of that. Little scary, right? It could be within the next 20 years.
Yeah, climate change is scary.
Yeah.
We are predicted to have 2 feet of rise by 2060. So we do have to aggressively address it with building higher, accommodating more water, um, uh, reducing our carbon, doing our part to keep temperatures in check. And we know the world is not yet fully grappling with it. There are Yeah.
You did something very interesting in regards to this. In late August, you appointed Xavier Cortada as the county's inaugural artist in residence. And as many of us know, he is passionate about sea level rise and what's going on generally and globally with effects of global warming. So maybe
Yes.
you can talk a little bit about him and why you chose him, because it's kind of a secondary way to approach all these problems that we have.
I think art is a very important way of helping to change hearts and minds. So people can connect with art in ways that they might not be able to connect just talking to each other, trying to change people's minds. So if you can get into a more emotional space, and art can really open up that space. So, of course, Xavier Cortada, who I've known for a couple of decades, is a very innovative guy, very creative, does beautiful art, but he does it for a purpose. And his cause is educating about climate. So he became our artist in residence. Of course, mangroves is one of his big things. He's installed a lot of mangroves here on the 29th floor of County Hall. Mangroves are a natural barrier for sea rise and also for healthy coastlines. And so we're just wanting to be part of that. He can help. There's the Underwater Homeowners Association that helps people think about their own homes and how high above sea level. My home, by the way, is 7 feet above sea level. So these are ways that you can educate and engage and make people become active in solving these problems.
I do want to briefly touch upon transportation and the transit way in particular that runs from Dadeland all the way down into the Homestead area. And, I've seen some changes there recently, but it doesn't necessarily seem like it's enough. This is one of the pet peeves that I've talked to you about offline several times. And one of the questions that's kind of related to that came in through our social media channel is from George Gonzalez. He wants to know if there's anything we can do about the ATVs and motorcycle, I'll call them gangs, although I'm sure they're not, that drive down these roads and really scare some of the cars and pedestrians that are nearby.
Yeah, the police have been able to interrupt some of this. They are following on social media. Some of these are meetup kinds of situations, and they really are terrorizing on the road, and it's very unsafe. So definitely you want to let police know if you see something, say something. And sometimes, gangs these days are kind of a different breed. Um, these folks are not necessarily out to hurt people,
Right.
but just to create disruption. But it is really important, and we do try to crack down, and we do have some folks in the traffic area police department, who want to know and want to pursue these concerns.
I know that you did a lot to assist in moving the transit way forward, and I wanted to see if you can provide a very brief update as to what we can expect over the next 6 months to 12 months.
Well, supply chain, did affect the construction of the South Dade Transit Way.
Okay.
But I think everyone can see it is underway. And I'll tell you an interesting thing about it. It has spurred economic development already up and down the corridor. The densification of the corridor, which is somewhat controversial in some cities, right? There was a plan passed, the RTZ, but you'll look, for example, north of Dadeland, because we already have Dadeland, that's already a major transit-oriented development. But now you see in Coral Gables area, Coconut Grove, a number of large buildings. They include workforce level housing, fewer parking spaces, and they have long wait lists. They are very popular. People want to live on the corridor. They want to use transit. And unfortunately, for those who are still wanting their house with the little picket fence, that is not the way of the future. We are now a world-class city. We cannot continue our sprawl. Yesterday, big discussion and vote on moving the urban development boundary line. And of course, I am firmly against that, because we can develop inside the urban development boundary. We can protect our agriculture, our open spaces, our water. All of this can be done without creating more urban sprawl and more development where we do not have infrastructure. We don't have the roads, we don't have the water systems, etc. So it's a vision that not everybody has quite wrapped their head around, but it is the way of the future.
And without getting into the weeds, I think the League of Cities has really served a great purpose. The county wanted to do certain things about densification. Several of the incorporated areas had different viewpoints on that, let's say. And rather than it becoming a legal fight of any kind, it became a heated but a good discussion in the League of Cities. And it looks like there's resolution because people are hearing each other from multiple angles. And that's what it's all about. I do want to very briefly touch on this. Hurricane preparedness. We may have Tropical Depression 9 potentially heading our way as early as Tuesday or Wednesday next week. And I wanted to know, how's the county? Are we prepared? And is there anything specific we should be doing for this storm?
Yes, we are on it. We've had regular calls with the Hurricane Center, with the South Florida Water Management District. Our new director of the Office of Emergency Management, Pete Gomez, is sending out alerts. We are telling everybody, yes, you live in a hurricane corridor. We don't have a hurricane coming yet that we know of, but it could be. So this is a really good time to dust off that hurricane kit, fill it, get your water bottles out, fill them with water for yourself and your pets, get that 7-day supply of non-perishable goods, and get ready just in case, and stay tuned.
We've gone through some very difficult topics today, but you seem to have guided us through, as you always do, and the calmness of what you've done in the past through a number of very difficult situations. I certainly appreciate it. I wanted to give you the last couple of seconds here to tell us what's good about the county and what's coming up.
Wow. Well, Hal, we live in the most dynamic, diverse place on the planet. And we enjoy beautiful weather most of the time, and wonderful food and music and beaches. And we just are so blessed here. And people have discovered it, and that's good for us. So what I'm focused on is making sure that that growth benefits people at home, that it's not at our expense, it's for our benefit, that local people get the good jobs, that we have our local businesses to benefit from the growing economy, and that we'll all be able to continue to live, work, and thrive here in the 305.
That's great. Listen, pleasure as always. I'm working on some musical things. I know that you like to come out to those music festivals. I think that might be the first place we met each other. And it's always a pleasure to talk to you, and thank you for what you've done for the county. And we're looking forward to more great things from you. Thankfully, we've got a budget to do it with, right?
That's it. Thank you, Hal, for what you do to bring the good news.
All right. Excellent. As always, I am here every single week, typically on a Thursday, to talk about real estate related topics. I thank Daniella Levine Cava, our county mayor, so much for her time today. It gives you a little peek into what's truly going on that affects our real estate market and, in fact, our entire lives here in South Florida. Until next Thursday at 2 o'clock, we'll see you. Thanks very much.